Yep,
Anyway, I'm pretty sure we're live, so I'm going to go ahead and start talking and
we're
act like we
live.
are live. Hey, everybody, how are you doing tonight? Like I
Hey,
said, in a couple of uh, the stuff that I sent out, we're going to talk about bugging in and bugging out. We've got Ryan tonight from his car, where he looks like he's in a horror movie.
in
Uh,
my lair, my
yeah, and
bunker.
then
That's it. Yeah.
yeah, and then for some reason, is Kevin still here?
No, I left.
Oh, okay. I couldn't see your picture, so I wasn't sure if you were still here or not. But yeah, we've got Kevin too. Like I said, we're going to talk about bugging in, bugging out, and I posed a question in the email I sent out in the groups and all of that. I posed the first question that I want to kind of go over tonight, and then get everybody's kind of, if anybody has any comments. We have a few comments on it already, but get your guys' thoughts as well. But so this hypothetical, it's a two-part question. We're going to go through the first part, and then we'll go through the second part. But the first part is you're at work and it's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. All of a sudden, everything goes dark. At first, everyone's joking around and wondering what the hell's going on. But about a half an hour later, you look out the window and you start to see the beginning stages of chaos and all that stuff. With no power, the streetlights aren't working. The traffic is jacked up. It's all at a standstill. And people are beginning to leave work and flooding the streets and just confused and frustrated. You know how people get. You're not sure what happened yet, but you're about 6 hours away from home on foot. What would you do? And three of the questions in that question I have are: how long do you wait till you decide to get out of there? What supplies do you have around you that you have access to? And do you have a route planned to avoid the confusion and evacuate quickly? Kevin, kind of, I suppose we'll start with you. Kind of elaborate on that real quick. Um, as far as like supplies, what supplies would you have or suggest you have around you?
Well, if I'm in my vehicle, I'm gonna have my normal vehicle stuff. So I'm gonna have some water, some food, a stove, a cook pot, compass, a map, a knife, all of the basic signaling devices. So if normally I use them for if I get stuck or I get a flat or my engine dies or whatever, and it's nighttime, I can signal somebody. Well, actually, day or night. Um, Binoculars wouldn't be a bad thing to have, just so you can see from a distance, which can be kind of good in a number of cases. Um, I have a whole list of stuff. I don't remember all of the items off the top of my head. Um, but the first thing I would do is, hey, am I safe? Is my area that I'm in safe? Try and figure out what's going on. And of course, paying attention to my surroundings and not getting into normalcy bias. Trying to ascertain what's going on, and then above all, remain calm.
Yeah. And my thing is, I mean, it really depends on where you're working or where you're at. I mean, it could be all of us are separated all day long, every day. So some people at school, some people at work, some people just driving around. So it really depends on your environment, what you have there. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I'm sure, like Lisa works in a nursing office. There's a whole bunch of stuff she could figure out. But office buildings and stuff like that, there could be snacks. There could be different types of stuff that you could bring with you, along with, like you said, that everyday carry stuff that we should have with us on a daily basis, right?
Mhm.
The all the gear that we should carry, the lighter in our pocket, the pocket knife, you can't. A lot of people don't bring their everyday carry stuff in to their work with them. They leave it in their car. But let's say it's in a parking garage and it just collapses and you can't get to your car. What do you do at that point?
Mhm.
Overcome, improvise, adapt.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's where that critical thinking stuff comes in, right?
Big time, yeah.
Do you have anything to add, Ryan?
Yeah. I mean, I think Kevin's right with the normalcy bias, right? Because I've actually been in like situations where like the power did go out at work, and I didn't have any suspicions that it was a larger thing, but I see how people just like assume that it's a power outage, or something like that. So we just need to be like really kind of aware when these things are happening, because it's easy to slip into those things. And you know if we're in that situation, I think sometimes like the social like social pressures and constraints and things like that, like will keep us there, right? Because we're like, well, what is my boss gonna think if I say like I need to go home, or if everyone's like, well, we're gonna wait here for another like 2 hours until we're supposed to leave because the boss isn't here. You know, like
I'm on the clock.
yeah, or something like that, right? You know, it's being willing to be like, okay, there's something in my gut that's just saying that this isn't right, and I gotta go, right? You know, you make sure you don't burn bridges, of course, in case it isn't. But if your gut's really telling you like something bigger is going on, you just need to be able to exit and be willing to maybe, you know, tell your boss like, oh, I'm not feeling good right now, I gotta go, or something like that, whatever the thing is you need to do. And I think people's tendency is just to kind of sit tight, and kind of wait till it's too late sometimes.
Yeah, and
I'll go back to 2003 where that actually happened in New York City. We lost power from, was it Maine down to New York City? I forget the exact area, but I know we were blacked out, and it wasn't for 5 minutes. It was 3 or 4 hours, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was pretty much. I was surprised. People were pretty calm. I was on the road. I forget. I was either leaving from work, going home early, or I was on the road doing something. And I didn't even realize it at first until I heard it on the radio. And I was looking around. Okay, signs on the highway are off. Lights weren't working. I mean, it's okay. I kept going, and then I got home. You know, turn on the light. Light didn't turn on. I had to go back in my truck and listen to the radio to find out what happened. It's like, all right.
Yeah. Well,
it was no big deal. I mean, and this is around. I mean, I was in New Jersey, but later on, when we did get power, they were showing video of people on the highway stopped because either the traffic got backed up so much they couldn't move, so they were just kind of hanging out, making a party. There's a video somewhere of some dude breaking out a barbecue, having a barbecue in the back of his tailgate.
Well, and in this scenario too, there's no cell phones, there's no way to figure out exactly what happened. And I think you're both right. There's that, as preppers, we kind of have to know, okay, this may not be this stupid little power outage. It could be, but I can't afford to just assume that. And then, after a half an hour or so, nobody still knows what's going on. You're still going to have the yahoos hanging around going, hey, I'm getting paid for this, I don't care.
Yeah.
But you yourself are thinking, okay, you've got to be paying attention to what the people in the building are doing, what the people outside are doing, how people are reacting, what their tension level is, all of that stuff, and figure out, when do you leave? When do you decide, hey, I'm out of here? I'm telling my boss I'm out. Some jobs, the boss would be telling people, you guys need to go. There's nothing you can do here. But what do you do when you say you go outside, you hop in your car, you go to pull out of the garage, and traffic is just jam-packed because none of the traffic lights are working. People are flipping out at, who knows how long it takes until people start to, like the thugs and stuff like that, start to figure out, hey, man, there's no power or anything. I can get away with a lot of crap right now.
Yeah.
All that stuff. In the notes, I have a few things and then we'll go through some of the answers we got to this question too. But in the notes, I've got that always having cash on hand is a good idea, because in an electric power outage, something like that, how are you going to get money? Say you can get to a 7-Eleven or whatever, get some bottled water, but if you don't have any cash, you're not going to be able to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like to hang back. I don't want to be a part of the crowd because then you kind of get sucked into it. So I kind of like to hang back and just watch and see how other people react, and that way I can that's part of that's part of making sure you have your supplies and stuff, because if you have them, then you don't have to go to the 7-Eleven and get some water, right?
Right. Yeah.
What's the other one, and then we'll get into some of the route planning and maps. That is because right now we have the ability to be able to kind of scout different areas, different situations, all that stuff, right? Where we can figure out what might be the best place, what might not. In a situation like that, that's when we need to know that stuff. So having maps of the area, even if you travel, every single day on the same route, who knows that when you have to get off of those routes, and who knows when you might have to use back roads and all that stuff. So that stuff's important as well. Anybody have anything to add before I move on to a couple of the answers we got?
I think the other thing that always was in the back of my mind when I was in a corporate job was, I had to wear dress clothes, which meant I wore dress shoes. And, dress clothes aren't the most comfortable to walk in, but dress shoes are really not suited to that. And I know there's a lot of people out there that have to dress up, especially in dress shoes. And if you have to walk home, that's a real big issue because the roads are blocked or whatever the case may be. So always having, a pair of, socks and some walking shoes in your car, especially if you're, like a white collar worker that has to do dress clothes, was one of the things that I always made sure that I kept in my kit, in my car when I was always going to work.
Yeah, if you're female walking around 30 miles with high heels, right. Good luck with that.
Yeah. I mean, men's dress shoes, you certainly can walk in them, but you don't want to walk that far, not miles at least. So,
yeah. And the last part of this kind of is the communications. And a lot of us don't have well, not the last part. There's one more, and I want Kevin to talk about it with the critical thinking. He kind of touched on it earlier, but with the communications, when you don't know what's going on, there's no power, there's no way to figure this stuff out. There are options. I don't know that we'd have them at work, though. I mean, you've got the crank radios and stuff like that, ham radios maybe, but if you don't have that stuff at work, it's going to be word of mouth, and you've got to be able to figure out who you can trust, where they're hearing it from, all of that different stuff. So before we move on to a couple of these questions, Brian, Kevin, don't need to know anybody's name. Go ahead and speak to critical thinking just a little bit. You still there, Kevin?
Sorry, I had to unmute. The touchback, going back to that part, I was in my truck. I turned on the radio, and I was able to get a radio station from outside of the area that was affected. So don't rule that out. Your immediate area may not have power, but if there's a radio station you can pick up in your vehicle, provided your vehicle starts or you're in it, you may be able to get some information on your radio. And especially if you have like XM or Sirius or whatever it is now, the satellite radio, you may be able to get information that you couldn't get because the local station's out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that all depends on what the situation is, which I'm going to go through in part 2 of this. But yeah, that's very true. And, even
that kind of leads into that critical thinking.
Yeah. Go for it.
So I like to say, don't think in a straight line. Think from a lot of different angles at the same time. I also say, forget trying to think outside the box, because if you put the box there to begin with, you're already limiting yourself. Forget a box. Think in different ways all the time, and you'd be surprised how many things that you wouldn't normally think of. Like, oh, I'm in the vehicle, let me turn on the radio. Well, there may not be anything, but there may be something. Don't give up on it until you try it.
Mm-hmm.
And just look around. And I like I said before, I like to hang back and watch other people. Hey, why is everybody all of a sudden moving that way? I can look, I can find out what the problem is. And instead of going that way, maybe I'll go that way where nobody else is going. Maybe that may be safer, and I'm not going to get, trampled by the herd of people that are running. You have to keep an open mind. Think a little bit differently. Don't think like everybody else, because we don't do that. We're thinking differently just because we're in the preparedness community.
Yeah.
So keep that going. Keep that momentum going. Don't fall into, well, everybody else is running that way, I need to run that way. No. Why are they running that way? Is there a better way you should be running or heading? And which way is it that you need to go?
Yeah. So, try to avoid all that stuff. That's where, like any plan you have, plan on it failing, basically. I think it was Mike Tyson or somebody said, everybody's got a great plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
Kind of the same type deal. You've got to be able to think on your feet, pivot, move, and make decisions like that in situations like that, because depending on how bad the situation is, one wrong move and it could be game over for you.
Yeah.
I mean, that probably means you waited a little bit too long to get out of there, but you know.
And that brings up the whole OODA loop and having your initial plan, your secondary plan, your tertiary plan. You know, always be thinking, what would I do if? And that's a perfect example of, hey, what would I do if I'm driving home from work and everything loses power? Oh, I would try this and this and this, and if that doesn't work, I would do this. Bingo.
Yeah, Kevin, do you want to kind of go over what OODA loop is? Because I have a feeling not everyone is familiar with that.
Oh, so I'm assuming that everyone's listening to Brian's podcast, and he always brings that up.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry, wrong crowd.
Do, but not everyone.
So orient, observe, or observe, orient. So basically, look around. What's going on? Think about what you're going to do. Plan out your actions, and then act on it.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a nutshell,
orient, observe, decide, and act.
Yeah. Was it?
Orient, observe, decide, and act.
That's it. Yeah.
Yep.
The OODA.
Yeah.
I know the process. I don't always apply the label to it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's similar to what I teach. I teach STOPA, which is pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
Stop, observe, plan. So it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And Lisa's commenting as the budget equestrian on the YouTube channel. So if anybody sees that, that's what it is. I'm going to read a couple of the comments we got on Facebook, and then Kevin's kind of watching the YouTube chat, but I'm not going to read all the comments we got on Facebook because there's some pretty good ones, but there's quite a few of them. And Brian Holland has a very long one, well thought out, but I might go ahead and try that. I'm not sure, but depends on how well my reading skills are this evening. Michael, and I'm not going to pronounce his last name either. It looks like some kind of Russian name or Polish name or something like that. Scherzewski. He said, "What's that?"
Just call him Ski.
Ski. Michael Ski. Chersky.
No, just call him Ski.
Ski.
That's it. New nickname, Mike.
What's that?
New nickname for you, Mike.
He says, well, that's about 18 miles away. So walking 20-minute mile super slow is about 6 hours. Then I'd be home. My guess that scenario can't be a marathon runner and make it home in 2 hours. Be the gray man, walk along the walkers, hopefully with a BOB that you got from your trunk. Grab that and start humping in the home direction. Stay off the main roads. Important to have water with you, road map, EMPs cooked off in the car, cooked off and cars aren't working. So a lot of that is good ideas. It's the when we're talking about how long, he's talking about 18 miles would be a very slow, he could walk slowly and make it there. But when you're thinking about having to travel different routes, different paths and stuff like that, that little 3-hour brisk walk route could turn into 4 or 5 hours pretty quickly. So it's all that stuff you have to think about. The food and water are the two main things.
And I have a 50-mile one-way commute every day.
So how long do you think that would take you to walk that?
I wouldn't even try. I would find a location close, and again, observe what's in the area. Depending on the situation, what the event, I'll call it, was. My actions would be dictated by what's happening. Am I going to grab a local hotel room? Am I going to stay in my vehicle and just pull off the road? I mean, everything is going to be dictated by my surroundings, my environment, what the event is, what people are doing, how they're reacting to it. Again, I'm not going to follow the herd because I'm going to get caught. Excuse me.
So in a situation where, I mean, you wouldn't, in this type of situation, there probably wouldn't be hotel rooms because there's no electricity whatsoever. So you would stick around and kind of wait it out, I suppose. Is that what you're saying?
Possibly.
That would be a better option.
Yeah, I mean, I have the equipment to do that. I mean, I have a truck. I sleep in the back of the truck. I have all my camping gear and all my gear all of it, but I have a lot of gear that I need in the back of my truck. I can easily spend the night in my truck and be comfortable. I have food. I have water. I have a whole bunch of stuff. My thing would be to park somewhere that I can remain unnoticed so no one knows I'm there, and I'm able to observe what's happening. And if I need to react, then I can. But if I can just sit there and trying it on the internet to see, on my phone, hey, what's going on here? Or say, hey, we're in trouble down here. We need some help. Get some kind of a message out, make a phone call, text, Facebook, whatever. But just kind of observe what's going on. Again, going back into that OODA loop or STOPA, find out what's going on, what the situation is, and then think about what my options are. And then do I even need to act at that point? Maybe I can sit it out and wait. Maybe I can't. So a lot would determine on what's going on.
Yeah. Hey, Ryan, how far is like a place that how far is the furthest you go? A place that you go to quite a bit or often anyway?
Yeah.
That would be the furthest you go. I don't know how far you travel, say to the studio or whatever you do.
Yeah.
Whenever you go or do it.
Yeah. I mean, I have an office.
Oh, can't hear you, Ryan.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I can't hear him.
Huh.
And he's on. Can you hear him, Kevin?
Hey, can you hear me now?
Kevin, can you hear him?
No, I cannot.
Well, I don't know what happened, Ryan.
Hey.
Let me try and if I mute him and unmute him. Nope. Can you unmute him? Ryan is muted.
Ryan isn't muted though. I just
how about that?
There we go. Okay. Hey. There we go.
Okay, that was weird.
Anyway.
Yeah,
2-minute drive, but that's like city driving with all my sorry, it's going through my car now.
city driving through all the lights and stuff. So I mean, it's about 5 miles, so I could get home pretty quick. And kind of how I approach it is I kind of scale what is in my car to the distance I'm going, right? So like if I am going several hours, I'm going to throw like a bag with a couple days of clothes in it, just extra. I'll bring a few snacks in the car or whatever, just in case. But if I'm just like milling around town, that's going to be like a couple hours at most to walk home, then I just run with my normal kit, which I always keep in the car. So I try to scale it to that. But, I think one of the things that we think, especially as like preppers, like that something's going to happen and then the world is just going to go to hell in a handbasket like that. And honestly, I mean, of course, we would, like Kevin said, we're going to observe and we're going to make a determination of how we're going to proceed and all this stuff. But I think we'll be pretty surprised when something pretty big happens and everyone gets up the next morning and goes to work anyway, right? Like, because they just don't know what to think about it. They can't process all those things.
This is my routine. I have to go to work.
They're like,
how things go.
The government's going to take care of it. The army will take care of it. The Red Cross is going to bring us food, whatever the case is, right? So yeah, I mean, I think we actually have quite a bit of time. Like in the case of EMP, where everyone's cars, just if they don't all work, then that's going to cause some chaos, obviously, and we'll be walking home. But like, we're not going to go to anarchy on a dime, most likely. So I think we do have some time. We need to observe and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I don't have that far of a walk if I do have to walk, but I also scale kind of what's in my car to kind of the distance I would have to go if I did.
Yeah, and that's the one thing too. There's so many with a scenario like this. There's so many different variables: where you live, what may be happening, where you work, where you're going to, all of that different stuff. It's really tough to kind of nail it down. But the whole reason I like doing these hypothetical scenarios is because it gives me, it opens the conversation and gives you ideas about, okay, what if this, what if that, and that's why I like asking other people too. Because you're like, okay, what would you do? Like I would have never thought with Kevin saying I'm going to stay right there. I work, 50 miles away from home. I'm not dumb enough to try to do that. situations like that. So it really is dependent on a lot of different factors. But thinking about this stuff is super important. Before we move on, I've got the next question, or it's like part 2 of this question. But Wayne said the first thing to do is get intel. See if your car starts, see if the phone works, check the radio stations, kind of the same thing that you said, Kevin, the XM radio, national feed, stuff like that. And then he said, if it's a local emergency, wait it out. If it seems to be a national emergency, initiate a plan and get home, which is important to make in advance, and which is very true. The planning and stuff, the family planning, making sure, because you're not going to have that communication, making sure that if your kids are at school and you're at work and something big like that happens, without having to talk to each other, everybody knows we meet here. We've got to get to the home base. That's what we have to do.
And I'm a big advocate of practicing your plan. Have drills. When I was growing up, my father would do that all the time. Fire was on, the house was on fire. This is what we do. This is what happened. This is what we do. So having the plan is great, but if you don't practice it, when you need it, everyone's going to be like, what did I do here? What do I do now?
Yeah.
But if you practice it doesn't have to be like every week, but every once in a while. My father would just on a Saturday morning hold up a lighter by the smoke detector and make it go off. You blow out a match and make it go off. And, we'd be asleep and boom, boom, boom. We had to do it without thinking. So try, whatever works best for you, but practice your plan however best you can. And don't just do it once. Try and do it a couple times. So the more you do it, the more better people are going to be at doing whatever their role or their job in that plan is.
Yeah.
So there's no questions, because if you can't communicate, you can't just stop and call someone and say, what was I supposed to do again? You can't cheat.
Yeah. I know one
guy.
Well,
if you have to do something like that, sorry, did you have something to add, Ryan?
I was going to say, I know one guy that he has like a larger survival group kind of thing. And for their practice, what they do is they choose a celebrity that's pretty up there in age, and their practice runs is if that celebrity dies, they're supposed to act like that was the disaster event, and they practice off of that. So they don't know exactly when that's going to happen, and everyone will know because it's a celebrity and that just gets out there in the news. So it's kind of a way for them to actually build in some unexpected ways to practice.
That's pretty interesting, actually.
Yeah.
Because, you just never know. All of a sudden, Robert De Niro.
Right.
Hopefully Robert De Niro dies. And I didn't mean that. Did I say that out loud?
Yeah.
But Robert De Niro dies, and then you got to initiate your plan, right? That's what you're saying?
Yeah. And then you see where it worked and where it didn't.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, so I'm going to jump into the part 2 of this question, and people can comment on this, and we'll go into it. But part 2 here, I got to pull this up. Part 2 is, okay, so you're on your way home now, and you notice that the situation is escalating really quickly. There's chaos and rioting in the streets, fires burning, stuff like that. And your house is basically in the line of fire, in the danger zone, all that stuff. It becomes evident that your home is not going to be a safe place to stay for very long. You get home, you pull out your crank radio or whatever it is, your ham radio and all that. You find out that it was an EMP that's taken out 75% of the U.S. power grid. You have about an hour before all the crap basically reaches your front door. What do you do? And 4 of the topics or the questions I have on this that we can talk about is your family all there? If not, we got to figure that out. What supplies do you take with you if you have to leave? Where are you going? And also, you're not going to have a car at this point because you had to leave your car at work. So if you don't have another car at home, you'll either be on foot. Lisa and we've got a couple horses. We were talking about this earlier. And, well, I don't ever go to work. But if, say, I had to go to work, my car, her car, they would both be at work. So we'd basically on horseback. Getting out of here, and I'd be headed east. I don't know where we live, why we'd be in the line of fire.
Yeah,
that's a long way for the riots and stuff to go to get to us. But there is a lot of things to think about. I kind of want to talk about get your guys' thoughts about what you would do, and also talk about how there's so much that you hear about bugging out in the prepping circles and all that, but the truth is it's not all that great of an idea unless you have got a rock solid plan of what you're going to do, or unless it is life or death. If I don't leave, I'm dead right now. Stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Real
Either
quick,
one of you.
we have a comment on the YouTube page, and I'll have to put my glasses on here to read it. So sorry about the reflection. But MGB is asking, I could use some advice on bug out locations. They have a camp that is about 11 miles away from the home. It's on a lake. Is that too close? Is there an expectation that lakes will be overrun?
Do you want to take that, or I'll start?
Yeah, go ahead and start. We can each chip in.
He brings up a good point about lakes being overrun, because it really depends on how far that lake is, in my opinion anyway, from the rest of the population. But it could very well be a place where people may congregate because it is that water source and stuff.
Yeah.
11 miles away from where you are, how far away is it from the major populations and all that? So that's my thoughts on that. I mean, it's a tough one. I think I would look for a place that there's water nearby, but not exactly, where I'm at. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you basically took the words out of my mouth. A lot of it depends on where that is, how far it is away from people, how many people know about it. Is the lake in like, can you only see it from a hilltop somewhere, or can you see the lake from the road? Is there a road nearby?
Yeah.
Where geographically is that lake, and is your location? If it's pretty well hidden, I might use it for the first little bit, but always be on the ready to move if I had to.
Yeah, be really alert about.
Reply is it all depends on the situation and its location and how well known it is, if at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you may want to avoid that, because by the time I get there, it's only 11 miles away. By the time I get there, there'll be hundreds of people. It's not worth it. I'll just have to go somewhere else. And that's why having plans, your primary plan and your secondary and your tertiary, that's when that would come into practice. Hey, my first plan, if I can, go to the lake house. If I can't do that for whatever reason, now I can go over here. So that's kind of how that all works into play.
So Ryan, if people were getting ready to take your tiny house and burn it to the ground, what would you do?
Yeah, I mean, and we said that we have to walk, right, in this scenario. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you had to leave your car, it really depends. I mean, in EMP, it depends on what type of car you have.
Yeah,
all that different stuff. But I would assume that because we don't know that, you're hoofing it.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, for me, it's probably getting back to just the standard bug out bag, and we won't get into like what all's in that, but I think most people have a good idea. It's just like, what can I carry with me reasonably over the long term, and still be able to run if I have to, right? Like, because if I get into a tough spot and I need to bail real fast, I may be 10 miles into my walk, I'm dead tired, but now I suddenly have to sprint for a couple minutes to get away because I got in a sticky situation. So yeah, I think for me, I'm just grabbing my bug out bag, connecting with my family, and then if I can. And I was actually just thinking about this recently because I've been listening to a EMP book, and one of the characters had like a stroller, and he just loaded that up, and I thought it was kind of an interesting idea, to have something that rolls that can carry stuff, because you still kind of navigate through cars and whatnot. So that might be something I consider, to be able to bring more food and water with me, maybe some other supplies if a car isn't possible.
And that brings up the point too, if you're not in good enough shape to actually do all that, that might be something that you might want to start looking at, as far as your health and your physical fitness, and that all plays a big role, as we all know. But we've all seen the funny pictures about the the 5-foot dude putting on the 7-pound or the 7-foot 5,000-pound backpack and say, okay, I got my stuff, but if you can't move with it, you're either going to leave it or you're going to stay with it.
Yeah. That 50 pounds in your pack you're going to end up throwing crap out of it along the way, leaving a trail of your water filters, your ferro rounds, all that stuff along the way because you can't carry it with you. Yeah. And this, I joke about we have horses and that's what we do, but honestly, the same thing kind of applies to like physical training. Our horses would be a pain in the ass. And Lisa, she's commenting as budget equestrian on there. She'll tell you, I don't know how far I could probably walk quicker than getting them to, go anywhere, especially with my riding abilities.
Yeah.
Or lack thereof.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
They actually make carts for anybody who actually hunts big game. They actually make carts with wheels.
Yeah, for like
probably about that big knobby tire wheels, and they're designed basically to pack out meat. But they work for carrying stuff. Somebody mentioned something that on the YouTube chat about sports strollers or a deer cart. That's like a deer cart. Yep.
Yeah.
Anything that goes back to what I said before, critical thinking. Don't think, don't put your blinders on. Think about anything that could work, use it.
Yeah. Well, and kind of along those same lines too, though, is we've got to have a place to go. Otherwise, we're going to be refugees. If you don't have a spot where you're going to go, basically, you've got to get out of there. Everybody's coming with pitchforks and whatever. They're coming to your house. They're like Brian's house. They're burning his tiny house down, huffing and puffing and blowing his tiny house down.
Oh, man.
But you've got to get out of there. Where are you going to go? And that's why it's important. Like I think it was Wayne that said earlier when we were talking about the planning stuff ahead of time. Even the comment about, hey, I've got this lake. The cool thing about that is that he's thought about that. I've got this lake I could go to. It's far away. But at the same time, you've got to think about, like he is kind of, that how long is that going to be a viable place to go? So, you need to be able to get there. You need to have the stuff to be able to get there, but you got to know where there is. And that's important. Even if it's a temporary place, have some place picked out kind of like that, but know that, something like that isn't going to be, eventually it's going to be overrun, especially when you've got a resource like water, or you've got, say there's hunting or stuff like that. Anywhere like that's close enough that the average person can get to, because they're going to have nothing but time on their hands, right? Just walking around, nothing to do, no job to go to or anything like that. So who knows how far they go. I don't think a lot of people will move away. If they're from the inner city, that's where they're going to stay, I think. And I'd like to get your guys' thoughts on this, but they're going to stay in the inner city because that's where, this is my opinion anyway, that's where the help's going to be, or they think it's going to be. Mm-hmm. That's where, the National Guard and all that stuff's going to be. So that's where a lot of the resources, or the resources they're used to anyway, are going to be. So I don't see this mass migration of people running out from the cities out to the suburbs. What are your thoughts? Ryan, you can start first, or Kevin, you can start.
Yeah, I can go. I mean, I'll go back to my point of
what I've seen in the past is people go where they feel most safe, and that's typically they go home or they stay in the city where they know, like you said, historically that's where all the resources are. So I don't think a lot of people are going to leave the city because they're thinking we're leaving everything behind and we're going nowhere. Like they don't have a destination picked. They may say, hey, we can go to our Uncle Joe's house who lives 2 states away. There might be some people like that, but I think the majority are going to stay there because they feel safe.
Yeah, exactly. Then Ryan, is your mic working?
Yeah. Can you guys not hear me?
Yeah, I couldn't before, but now I can.
Okay,
I couldn't, and then Kevin jumped in, so I let him go. So now you can go.
All right. Yeah. So, I mean, I made the point of earlier, like, it's pretty unlikely, I think, that people are going to really just like go from zero to insane overnight. It's going to be a slow burn, and it will certainly build up, and there'll be little pockets. So I think as preppers, we just need to be aware of this, have that situational awareness, follow our gut. And I think for a lot of these things, we can really get out ahead of a lot of the things. And you only have to be 30 minutes ahead of the horde, right?
Yeah.
You just need to be ahead of it, and obviously have a direction you're going and hopefully a destination, things like that. But yeah, I think especially in the beginning, people are going to stick to what they know. They're going to stick to the cities for all the reasons that we just laid out. And as preppers, we should just have plans and preps in place so that we can capitalize on that complacency of theirs and make big moves to wherever we need to do, because it could be that the roads are really congested, the first 2 miles, and once you get outside of that radius, you're golden. Maybe you're able to find a bike and you just bike the whole way, or maybe your car still works, and if you can get out past the suburbs, you're fine to keep on rolling. You can get some serious distance ahead of people. So
yeah, and kind of along the same things you were saying there, Wayne had made a comment that about a week, people would stick around the city for about a week, and then after that, after the food and stuff starts to run out, that's when they start thinking, okay, we got to go a little further out. That's when that stuff will happen. So I think it's kind of exactly what you were saying, is that people aren't going to freak out initially. There's going to be some people that are just looking for an opportunity to take advantage of some crap and cause a lot of damage and all of that stuff. But that's, you can stay away from those people for the most part. But it's when the people get like really upset and know that, hey, this isn't going to change. This isn't getting better anytime soon. We need, somebody's supposed to be here to help us. Nobody's here to help us. And everybody, we pay our taxes. You're supposed to be here to help us. And nobody's coming. That's when everything, I guess, starts to get real, I suppose.
The other thing too to keep in mind is what time of year is it? What's the weather? Because people are going to react a lot differently during the summertime when it's really nice out and the weather's comfortable versus, like the Northeast, what happens if you're in the middle of a nor'easter and you're in a blizzard, or out west where you're getting 3 feet of snow. People are going to react a lot differently based on the season and temperature and the environment. Like I said, it went in summertime. Yeah, hey, we can go 11 miles to the lake house, but if it's in a blizzard, can you make it a mile?
Yeah,
that's something else you got to plan for too.
And that could be something that would curb the, that massive chaos and stuff. Because if it's something that happens in the winter, the odds are there's not going to be, it's just like protests. Everybody goes and protests when it's on the weekends, when it's nice and sunny. Yeah. But when it's snowing out and all that, they're not out there protesting. So it's kind of the same thing. So that may work in our favor if in a situation where it's in the dead of winter, you might not have, it might be less likely that you would have to bug out or something like that, right?
I would think so anyway. Ryan, what are your thoughts?
I mean, you never know, really.
Yeah.
That's why we play this game.
I don't think you'll never know, but I think you're right. There's going to be a lot of factors that we need to take into account. And like it could be that we just need to hustle and move now. It could also be the case where it's like, we got a little bit of time, and like maybe I go and I call up my dentist and be like, hey dentist, I want to get a full thing done on my teeth, cleaning, and I'll check it out today. And it could be that you even have time to Amazon Prime stuff, right? like honestly, like we may have
3 days to get your get your long-term food storage and stuff.
Yeah, you like swing by your doctor and you get all your updated immunizations. You swing by the dentist, he checks out your teeth, all while you're ordering shit on Amazon that gets delivered. Like we may have that much time.
It's possible, I suppose.
It's totally possible.
Who of us has the address of our alternate or bug out location as our secondary delivery address on Amazon already plugged in?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's saying that you do have your secondary location. A whole lot of us
no,
don't.
I'm just asking, does anybody have that? I'm not saying I do.
Oh, yeah.
Just saying.
Well, and if you think about it, a good bug out location, it would be kind of tough for Amazon to get out there, or UPS. I'm sure they deliver just about everywhere, but it'd be pretty tough to get them out there.
There's a place in the mountains that UPS and only UPS will kind of deliver to.
Yeah, I know.
They'll get it within a mile or two, and then they're just going to drop it off. And
they just airdrop your shit.
They just drop it at the base of the mountain, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm not going to go up there."
Yeah.
All right. Before we get out of here, I want to talk about a couple things about bugging out. A couple of the main points that I had is, it's really not all it's cracked up to be. Everybody likes to talk about bugging out, and you got the bug out bags and the bug out supplies and all that. But like I said earlier, it'd have to be your last resort because you've got all your stuff at home. You've got everything that you've built up for years and years and years that's at your home. Now, unless you have a bug out location, and then you're set, because then you've got 2 different locations and all that. But you're living like a refugee. You're leaving everything behind. You're living like a refugee. You're living like a homeless person, basically, carrying your little baby cart with a bunch of stuff in it down the street with you. Maybe you got some like long-term food stuff in your little baby stroller and
crackers.
Yeah.
That's for the YouTube chat. I mean, looking at the comments, but that's got my crackers.
But then you got to worry about the people coming and stealing your baby stroller full of stuff and all that stuff. So it's a dangerous situation. So our main thing should always be trying to stay at home as much as possible. Maybe that means saving up to buy a new home that's further away from population. Maybe that means trying to get, like Elisa and I are going to do, like we've tried in the past, we're going to do it again, but just get a plot of dirt and then start building on it. At least that's something where even right now, say it's just a plot of dirt, something happens right now, we go there and pitch a tent. I mean, not the most ideal situation in the world, but it's somewhere, you know what I mean? It's not just putting my thumb out on the side of the road, hoping that the guy that's going to pick me up doesn't want to chop me up and eat me because he hasn't eaten in a week and a half. That's all I got.
You're too old and crusty. Too old and crusty.
Yeah, gristly.
They'll stew.
But it's those situations, I think, that the whole we tend to romanticize the bugging out thing because it is kind of cool. I mean, you've got the bug out bag, you've got all the different stuff we can get, and to me, I think a bug out bag, regardless, is important because it's a microcosm of your preparedness plan. So it's got all the little stuff that you can fit in a 72-hour in a bag or whatever. Mm-hmm. But on a larger scale, it's all the same stuff. Instead of MREs or granola or whatever, you've got different food storage that won't larger food storage. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah.
Instead of trying to find water, you've got your water storage, but it's all the same.
How to collect it and all that.
Yeah. And if your water storage runs out, you've got to be able to have that knowledge. So it all ties in together, and it all works together. But I don't want to go anywhere. So if it means defending what I have, if that's a possibility, I think that's what's going to happen. But at the same time, I'm not the Rambo type dude that is gonna Custer's last stand type thing. Just go for it and end up dead. Some people, that may be them, but not me.
I mean, it's stuff. So is your life worth stuff? I mean, maybe water, maybe your food, but in the end, it's all stuff. Can you get more stuff later? Possibly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe bug out for
bugging out, going camping. That's just me.
Yeah, maybe you do that for a day or two, and then you figure out your game plan to go back and get your damn stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Get your counterattack. All right. Before we get out of here, I'm going to check the comments. Ryan, do you have anything to add?
I think, and you a little bit talked about this, but even if you're bugging out or I guess even if you're bugging in where your location is, you need to have a plan to bug out because you don't know how long you're going to be viable there. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. You need to be able to stay flexible. You need to be adaptable. You need to be able to leave if you absolutely have to. And of course you don't want to leave that stuff, but there may come a day or a time or a situation where that's your only option because like Kevin said, your life isn't worth the stuff in most cases, that's more important. So just understand that even if you bug in, that you maybe need to bug out. And the other thing I've hear people say is, even if you're bugging out, it's still actually bugging in. You're just bugging in over there, right? So kind of think about all the contingencies and how it can go wrong and how you can meet those things to stay resilient.
Yeah. And when I first started this, I was talking about bugging in, and I think there's two different ways to think about it. A lot of people, when they hear bugging in, it means staying put, staying home.
Yeah.
But it also means bugging in, like getting home. So when I say that, it's kind of interchangeable, and I probably confuse a lot of people sometimes, but I do that anyway. So, it's just how it is.
I wasn't going to say
that. All right. So unless you guys have got anything to add, I think that's it for today. We're going to be on Facebook tomorrow night. I don't know yet what we're going to be talking about, but if anybody wants to leave a comment on the Facebook page, the Preparedness Experience Facebook page, the Preparedness Experience website, anywhere, give us some ideas about what we should talk about. Even put the comments on YouTube, and then we can figure some stuff out and kind of go from there tomorrow. Do you guys have any ideas, any thoughts, or anything like that before we get out of here?
I think we're good.
Plan ahead, stay safe.
Yep. All right, everyone. Well, we will talk to you. Well, those of you that show up, we'll talk to you tomorrow, but we'll be on the air tomorrow. Go to our website, check it out, the preparednessexperience.com. You can get more information there. If you want to figure out when we're going to be on next and all that stuff, you can email me, Ryan, or Kevin. Just our name at the preparednessexperience.com. Get a hold of us, and like our Facebook pages and all. We're all over the place. YouTube channel, all that stuff. So
just sign up on the mailing list, and you'll get notifications of when we're going to have a video coming out.
Yep, exactly. All right, guys. Well, we'll talk to you later.
You just came out with a podcast this weekend where you went into that.
Oh yeah, I did. Huh?
Saying
that was then. That was so long ago. I don't remember this morning, let alone when I did the podcast.
DRS already, huh, Dale?
Yeah.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you all later.
All right. See ya.
See y'all.